My little niece is soon to turn 4 years old. And this was the first summer that she went swimming. I hope all of us maybe had a chance to do that this summer. We couldn't keep her out of the water. She was like a fish. She would stay in the water for hours and hours and hours. It was just wonderful. And then we had to tell her last week that this was probably the last time she would be able to go swimming because the temperatures were going to start to get cold and the water would get too cold to swim. And one big step she took this summer, and it's a beautiful memory, maybe you can think of something like it. If you've ever gone out to the middle of the lake in a boat and jumped in the water, hopefully with a life jacket, or if you're a good swimmer, you can do what you need to do. But she even got to do that, and she just absolutely loved it. And she was a little bit sad because she can't go swimming anymore. She's going to have to wait. I think a lot of what she liked is that at the beach she went swimming that my mom and dad, her grandma and grandpa took her to, there was a Dairy Queen at that beach by the lake, and she would get a blizzard after she went swimming. But that whole idea of jumping out into the deep water, being in the water, it's something that can both be exciting, but can also be a little bit fearful. We can be fearful of that. And it's interesting that Jesus uses that. He says that we are to put out into the deep as he's speaking to Simon Peter and to James and John and St. Andrew as well, the fishermen. He says, put out into the deep and lower your nets for a catch. Sometimes at this time of year, when we're looking out at the whole school year ahead of us, I know even for me, that can seem a little daunting. That can fill me with a little bit of anxiety. That we've got all this work to do. But at the same time, it's also very exciting. And we have to hold those two things together. And that's what Jesus was teaching his apostles to do in this moment. And it's the same thing he asks of us at the beginning of this year. And so that would be my challenge for all of us, is that as we begin our year with this gospel passage, with this teaching of Jesus, that we would understand that it's for us to help each other, to put out into the deep, to plunge into the deep waters. Even though, yes, on some days it might fill us with a little bit of fear and anxiety, but at the same time, we should look at it as a challenge, as something that excites us, a place to test and here's a word for this year, a place to test our virtues. We'll be hearing a lot about virtues in this coming year. We're going to work on one together as a community every month of this year. When we put out into the deep, when we go out into the deep waters, when we go out into the unknown, when we're exploring new things to learn about, when we're exploring new friendships, when we're learning from a different teacher than we've had before, when we're teaching different students than what we've had before. Right? There's all these new things, and it can seem like we're putting out into deep water that we don't really know. But at the same time, if we don't do that, it'll never test us. It'll never change us. And what the virtues do is they are those things, those qualities about ourselves: wisdom, understanding, courage, moderation, faith, hope, love. Those things don't get tested and deepened if we just stay in a safe place, if we just stay in a comfortable place. We actually have to have them tested. And of course, we don't do that recklessly. We don't do that unsafely. But we actually want to step into those places. We want to put out into the deep water so that those things will test us and change us and actually draw us closer to each other and closer to Jesus himself. And so as we begin our year here at the altar of God, at the table of the Lord where Jesus is truly present to us, we ask him to help us put out into the deep. Let those words come to rest in our hearts, along with his other words from today when he tells us, do not be afraid.